What is going on, guys? Welcome back, Ryan Moody, Jimmy Smith. This got to be the best one we ever have because we just did the most prep we've ever done. Taking a look, UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Oleinik. We're going to start off with some, I don't want to say big news, but I will say mixed reaction news. Ray Borg has been cut from the UFC. The guy has had a lot of personal issues, none of which are his doing. We've all wished him the best, but the reality is this is a sport. This is a company. This is a business. They have to depend on their talent, and stats are stats. If you've been lined up to fight Ray Borg the past few years, you probably ended up fighting someone else. 3 times injured, 2 times illness, 2 times personal issues, 1 time on a withdrawal. I think another it's just a lot of things, and obviously all the best for him and his son. He's a world talent athlete. He's going to bounce back, but I don't know who couldn't have seen this coming if we continue down this path. And to be fair, a lot of people didn't bring this up. This is also a guy that basically said, hey, I'll retire, I'll quit if I miss weight one more time.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction I've been seeing most is unfortunate, sucks, but you don't blame the UFC for making this kind of choice. Also, if he does get things on track with his own health, his son's health, his weight cut, whatever it is, I could see him coming back. Let's say he goes to Piloto or somewhere else, gets a few wins under his belt. I don't see him staying away, right? So it sucks, especially considering his situation, especially his son, all he's been through. But I agree where it's, in a business sense, not a lot of people were surprised by this move by the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, you have yet to see one person say anything about the personal issue. And even, you talk about regular day jobs, there's some leeway there. But the reality is, in the business of UFC, if they put Ray Borg on a poster tomorrow and said, hey, we're gonna sail the ship behind you, there's a good chance he ain't going to make that card. Right, wrong, or indifferent, no matter who's at fault. It's just unfortunately the way it's been. I really like Ray. I'm glad I got to see him fight in person, but at the same time, I understand not a lot of people have been able to say that as of late. Moving into the card, Jimmy, we're going to start with a catchweight fight. Beneil Daryush and Scott Holtzman. I went back and looked. Daryush fought, surprised us both, right? And this was just before everything fell apart. UFC 248, simpler times. But to me, Daryush ground ace, top or bottom. Really nice punches, great left hook. Doesn't mind taking some shots to get inside. When you look at Scott Holtzman, kind of a journeyman fighter. We see flashes like every so often. I just don't think he has the confidence needed to put together not a complete fight, but a complete run of fights. He moves well. He works well in space. He avoids damage because he just bounces. Like, there's no way out of the other way to put it. He just bounces. He doesn't move inside traditionally. He just kind of works really well within his range and then pulls back out of yours. But I think Daryush is the better overall fighter. Both of these guys are talented. I'm just going to go with Daryush here with, I'll say, a decision win.
I would go with Daryush by submission. He has a great ground game. Another thing about Scott Holtzman is, man, he's big for this weight class. He is strong. He's just a strong dude. Good power punching, but Daryush has a lot of confidence in his ground game. He has a lot of confidence in his takedown, very technical jiu-jitsu. I like his submission game. I think it's a matter of Holtzman being dangerous early, but Beneil Daryush, I saw a stat a few days ago where over the last, I forget how many years it was, he has more UFC wins than almost anybody. It's like 13 or 14, a lot. He's just been so consistent. He's, it hasn't been against a lot of great names. It hasn't been like, oh my God, title implications in his fights, but one of those guys who's quietly building a resume, quietly comes in and does his job and gets it done. And a lot of it is because of his ground game and that experience, that having been in there so long and done it so many times, that professionalism, I think he rides out probably a rocky start because I think Holtzman does come out aggressively. Very big, as you said, bounces, has interesting angles, a powerful guy, but I think Daryush rides that out and gets a submission win, probably late, second or third round.
I'm going to call fight of the night, next one, Yana Kunitskaya versus Julia Stoliarenko. I'm pretty sure we did talk about this. You got to see her fight in Invicta, and her record just amazes me. 7 fights, less than a minute submissions. I don't know how you get into a fight and get submitted in an armbar in 20 seconds. You told me she was flying into these. They're not all available to see, but I just don't know how you could get someone down, transition, get an armbar, unless you're fighting someone that's just an absolute novice. The interesting part about it is she's actually a really good striker. She has a great like right punch and high kick combo. She just went through a war. And she's fighting a girl that is definitely game. I mean, Yana comes to fight. She moves forward. She's got good grappling too. Works really good behind her jab. Some nice push kicks. It's just a super tough fight to call. I just see, both girls here, one making her debut, kind of a comeback debut, if you will, versus a really tough out. And I feel like this is going to be a really good fight. I'm going to go with Yana to win a super exciting brawl.
The thing to me is Stoliarenko, and I called her fight against Lisa Verzosa at Phoenix Series 3, an Invicta, bloodiest female fight I've ever called in my life, by a lot. And Stoliarenko, you can look at her record, a lot of quick submissions. I was able to track down a couple of them when I was studying her for the Invicta fight, and it's legit. A couple of them were like 20 seconds. One of them was just against the rope. She kind of went to this flying armbar and got it. She'll wade through and throw power punches and not care. She'll take one to give one. That's fine with her. I think Kunitskaya needs to keep her at a distance, use her feet, use her legs, use her range. She's much taller than Stoliarenko. She has that reach advantage. That's going to be the key to this one, right? I mean, it's an inch in height, but she fights very, very tall. Kunitskaya likes to stand tall and use her legs. She's got to do that against Stoliarenko. I'm going with the slight upset here. It could be because I called her last fight and it was so brutal and such a war, and I like the heart she showed in that. She clearly has a submission game. I think this is going to be on its feet for quite a bit, and I think Stoliarenko wades forward, throwing big punches, and gets it done. I think Stoliarenko by decision, that'd be my pick, in a slight upset.
You know the last time you sided with somebody because you were like just talking to them and liked them?
Yeah, that would be the Calderwood fight.
No, I'm sorry. Take that back. Before that.
I did.
I know you did it there.
Who was before that?
Jessica I. And then you memed her in the actual thumbnail.
It's true, yeah.
Well, Jimmy.
Yeah.
She's my best friend.
I love her to death. I do, but I got to call it as I see it.
Well, you didn't love her in that thumbnail. I mean, good God, you ain't friends now. All right, here we go.
Still
Darren Stewart. Yeah. That's not what the thumbnail said. Darren Stewart, Makai Piloto. I'm trying to put the best way to put this. I don't understand totally, and maybe you do, how Darren Stewart bumped down to Cage Warriors after 3 years in the UFC. Are you? I didn't find the story on this. Do you know this?
It was COVID. Remember, it was the only fight going on that they would sanction during the COVID pandemic, and I think. Because his opponent was a UFC guy too. And I think what Dana said was, look, we can't have a show right now. You guys can go ahead and get out of your contract for this one show, or, I wouldn't say released, but given permission by the UFC to have this one fight, because we're not having any fights right now. Because that was the one that was taking place during the lockdown and everybody was freaking out about it, understandably. That was the card. So I think Dana gave them both permission to fight in it because there's no other way to work at the time.
Well, there you go. Jimmy Smith dropping all the knowledge.
I try.
So Bartolo really hasn't had that breakout UFC moment. He's fought well, works well behind his jab, really, mixes in, maintains range, some body shots, good movement. He's just one of those guys you feel like will be around, but not really like a contender. He's never easy out, but he's never going to be a guy that you fight that really moves the needle for you. As far as Stewart, we know the pedigree this guy comes in with. Super confident, as he should be. Good power, uppercuts. A lot from his right hand, some decent combos, but when you watch him, a lot of things get timed. A lot of things are really repetitive. I worry about his gas tank just a little bit based on what I've seen. I'm going to go with him to be a bit more hungry coming off that loss, but this is going to be a really tough fight, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's difficult. Maki Pitolo, when he really gets it going, throws good combinations. He gets good extension on his punches. He's coming up from 170 pounds. He's not the biggest middleweight in the world. I think Stewart definitely has the power advantage. If you look at the Charles Byrd fight, Stewart hit him and he had his hands up. He actually blocked the shot, and it didn't matter. It still knocked him down. It still hurt him, and it led to the finish. The guy's got real power at 185. He's a big dude. So I think it's one of those things where Maki Pitolo fights Hawaiian. Come get it, right? Meet me in the center and let's bang. And he's going to draw out a brawl in a guy who hits a little bit harder. I think Pitolo's a bit more technical, but I think he's going to get in the kind of fight that favors a hard hitter like Darren Stewart. I'm going with Darren Stewart in this one.
Moving up the card, Akhmedov versus Weidman. Sometimes we will praise the matchmaking. I realize Chris Weidman has to fight somebody. I do. But these are just two guys in really, really different places. Akhmedov 5 wins in his last 6 with a draw, 3 fights since March 19. Weidman comes in, dropping 5 of his last 6. And a lot of those I know came at middleweight and are 3 years removed. But, I think we all know what Chris Weidman can do wrestling and ground and pound wise. But I think that the grappling and the wrestling can kind of balance out here. I worry, though, about Chris Weidman's ability to take shots. And I don't even know if we need to have a power puncher in front of Chris Weidman at this point. This is a guy that's got 5 knockout losses. That's going to change a fighter. So I know that Chris does have decent striking. I know that he's going to look to go this to the ground, but it's just really hard for me to take Chris Weidman in this fight. Ironically enough, I could really see a situation where Akhmedov gets Weidman on the ground and does a ground and pound finish, which, used to be kind of a trademark for Chris Weidman. At this point, I just wonder how much Chris has left in the tank and how much I want to continue to see him fight. Because, Chris Weidman was one of the premier fighters for a long time. And it's just, you've said it before, the cliff edge is steep and fast. And I'm just worried we're going past it.
I agree. The hard part about this is if you pick against Chris Weidman, you're saying he's shot. Because a Chris Weidman in his prime, or even close to his prime, I think beats Akhmedov. He just has more. You can do more. He's bigger, better wrestler, harder hitter when it comes to striking. Omari Akhmedov, 5-0-1 his last 6 fights, but all decisions. He's just not a knockout puncher. He doesn't hit that hard. Beat Ian Heinisch the last time out, but he hasn't done it against any elite talent. Chris Weidman has lost 5 of his last 6, but all of them against elite talent. And also, I think if Chris Weidman loses, it's probably the end of his MMA career. I don't see him sticking around the UFC should he lose to Akhmedov, especially in devastating fashion. Definitely out of the elite for sure, but I don't see where his career goes should he lose his fight. So picking against Chris Weidman, you're saying, A, that he's not a fraction of the fighter he used to be, and that his career is probably over. And I hate saying that, but I think that's what it is. I think Akhmedov wins this one, probably by decision. Of course, you might catch Chris. His chin has substantially faded, but I don't see a way forward for Chris if he doesn't win this fight. Now, he might. He'd have to stick to his wrestling, his ground and pound, his submission game, that kind of stuff. But if he can't beat the Omari Akhmedovs of the world, where does he go from here? So that's the hard part about picking against him. I don't like doing it, but I got to go with Akhmedov in this one.
All right, here we go. Main event, Derek Lewis, Alexei Oleinik. Derek Lewis had really been in the fans' hearts. Unfortunately, posted on social media a video of him supposedly spitting in the meal of Alexei Oleinik. Now, a lot of people were disgusted by this. I personally think it was just... It wasn't real. It was staged. He didn't give that meal to him. That was all just supposed to be a joke and fun. However, in the world we live in right now, there is no joking. There is no fun about spitting in someone's food. I'm all for, ribbing somebody before a fight, but I just don't think this was the way to go. And the fan backlash has been pretty swift. Now there's a lot of people that want to see Alexei Oleinik take advantage of this, but it's funny when I talked about us previewing this, Lewis has really grown as a fighter. We saw a head kick from him, a spinning attack, flying knees. He's almost like reborn himself in the division. Now, don't get me wrong. He's still got that big power. He's still got the uppercuts and the straights. And I think if we see that guy, that pressing forward, aggressive guy, he's tough for anybody to beat. But if we see that old Derek Lewis, the one that has to wait for the closing seconds to go for broke, I don't know how well this is going to go because Oleinik has a nice overhand of his own, punches and straights. And we all know the game that he wants to play. and he needs to get you to the cage. He needs to get you to the mat. It's can Lewis prevent that? Because a lot of times Derek Lewis gets taken down and he doesn't get back up on his own. He gets a stoppage or a round ends. So the other interesting part of this is, and I asked you, what belt does Derek Lewis have? And you said, I don't know that Derek Lewis is a white belt. So just in the whole world of MMA, if you have somebody that's not a white belt going up against somebody like Alexei Oleinik of his caliber, it's really hard to think that they're going to stand any chance. Now, can the striking and everything counteract? That's what we have to see. I'm really torn on this one for that reason. I am going to go with the grappling ace of Oleinik to actually find a way to win this. And really, up until you confirm with me, you don't know Derek Lewis's belt, I was ready to go with him.
My issue is the takedown ability of Alexei Oleinik, because we've seen Derek Lewis against superior grapplers. Almost everyone in the UFC is a superior grappler to Derek Lewis. He has this weird ability to survive bad situations, to be side controlled and just kind of sit up and get out, to escape in weird ways. The thing to me is Oleinik doesn't have a great wrestling game. He doesn't have a great takedown, great submission game, but he's not the slickest wrestler in the world. If you were a better wrestler, I think you'd be more efficient at taking those down, much in the way DC was, and it's a pretty easy submission once you get there. But what happens a lot of time is, when we saw this the Blagoy-Ivanov fight, is Lewis wears you down as you try to take him down. He's big. He's kind of flat-footed. You end up getting tired trying to fight Derek Lewis's weight and his power and everything he brings. And so by the time the third round rolls around, a lot of grapplers are just tired. They're tired of trying to take him down and get good position on him. And the difficulty for me is Oleinik doesn't have the most efficient takedown in the world. And what I think might happen with this one is Oleinik trying to take him down and take him down and take him down, kind of wears himself out for the late surge of Derek Lewis. And we saw in the Volkov knockout, the guy is dangerous late. His build is not indicative of his gas or his cardio. So I'm going with Lewis on this one, probably by late stoppage.
We really don't see this contrast at this level much of
it's a throwback.
Yeah, it's kind of that throwback fight. So it is going to be interesting to see how some of these pan out. And then you should all know next week, the massive card that will be UFC 252. We appreciate you guys watching this. We will be back to break down that card as well in the week with more commentary.